In this demo, I want to show probably one of my favorite features that was added in the ESS portal version 4.4, and that's related to user preferences. And so, first of all, you'll see user preferences in any of the user menus based off the themes. It might present a little differently, but there's basically now a new option under this drop-down for user preferences. You can also get to this from the My Profile page. You'll see an action at the bottom for user preferences. Both take you to the same user preferences page. Now this page will be hidden if under your settings there's an option here to show user preferences. You turn that off globally. There's no option to edit your user preferences from the portal at this global kind of property setting. Now we've had user preferences to some degree inside the app for a while, but basically consolidate a lot of those options into one page. Now some of these are new as well. So one I like that's kind of in here is the ability to kind of turn it off records. So for example, this is going to show, based off of me and some of my other videos I've covered, that in 4.4 there's some options to hide certain record types based off of user criteria. Also, you can turn on and off kind of certain functionality of the portal. Say I don't want requests or I don't want business services. If those things are turned off, then what record types show up here is going to be determined based off of what's available. So in this case, these are all the types that are available to me. But I can also choose beyond that if I don't want to see certain things. Maybe I don't want to see knowledge. Maybe I don't want to see approvals. Maybe I don't want to see business services. Maybe I don't want to see changes, for example. I can hide those things. Now what happens is, because I've done things like hit knowledge and business services, now my environment's going to change. Right? So some of my choices are going to change. As I go to do a search, all I've got to search for is catalog items. Right? So if I do an email search, basically at this point it's going to take out knowledge, take out business services, not going to show me those items. You also see the menu up here. It shows service information, they show knowledge information. Menu options have also been hidden based off my preference of hiding those options. Right. Further, like I've also hidden here changes in approvals, right? So in this case, I'm not going to see the approvals option in there. If I go to my requests of my record types, changes aren't going to show up in this list. And same thing if I were to hide incidents or requests, those would be hidden from this list. So I can kind of choose which records I want to show in the preferences. So that's one aspect of this. Go ahead and just turn these back on. And by the way, these being turned off are also going to drive some of the other preferences down the road here. There's also now a native notification preferences section where this is organized similarly to the native UI in terms of going through your configuration section and seeing what notifications show up under assessment, turning on and off those. One handy feature, there's a filter here. So if I do a filter for like incident, it's going to highlight these that have the word incident in there in the category, so I can quickly find which notifications I can turn on and off based off of doing a keyword kind of search. All right, so that's kind of been exposed. Suggestion preferences. So this is whether suggestions are turned on, the suggestions engine is turned on. And this is also going to drive if catalog items are displayed, if knowledge is displayed, if business is displayed. And so this is going to show which options or which suggestion script options should be displayed for suggestions here. So I can edit these here. The same thing can be done from the direct pages themselves. Inside the suggestions, I can go into this option, turn on and off different functions, right, to drive this, and that's going to lead to the same kind of preference under suggestion preferences. All right, so my favorites. So some options here you'll see to show favorites, whether to hide this globally or not. And what this is going to do, it's going to hide the option. So you'll see an option up here for my favorites. Hide that. It'll also hide the button or the star or the asterisk that is associated to the individual items where I can do that. There's also the option to show save filters. This is the save option in the list of save filters on the individual items. So I turn this off, you'll see it also turns off this ability to have this default kind of record query or default filters assigned to different pages, which I'll highlight in a little bit. Service subscriptions. It's another page where I can go to define my different service subscriptions. This is for notification purposes. If I want to include other ones that aren't listed here, these ones I can just turn on and off. I can also do a filter here, say show all. Maybe add, say, Apache in here as a search. Right, find this, hide that, or add that to my list. And that's kind of how I would do that. Under other, there's also some interesting ones here. Display on and off for announcements. Whether to do search suggestions. Let me show what this one is quickly. So on the home page, and this I'll cover in another video, is some of the updates to this type ahead. But one of the things you'll see in this type ahead is as I highlight or focus in on the input, it's going to show me some suggestions. Here's some things I recently viewed. Here's some searches I recently ran. If I don't want this to show up, I can go to Preferences, go to Other, turn that search suggestions off in the search box. And as I come back into here, you'll see as I type it does, or as I focus it doesn't do anything. As I type, it'll still show me suggestions that match my search, but isn't going to give me that kind of on focus suggestions list. The other interesting ones you'll see on here under the others, positioning of the panel. So there's some navigational filters and additional options that are typically on the right side. If I want them on the left side, I can choose that. And what that's going to do then is I go to these various pages. Right now you'll see my additional filters are over here. And as I go to the status page, you see the filters now on the left versus the right as well. So the other one that's on here, and I'll cover this more in the service health display thing, but there's some option in the service health page to turn off preferences of showing your current outages, your planned outages, etc. But let me go back to, I mentioned, go to the my favorite section, specifically this record filters. So one of the options that's been added as well as part of this is the ability to define kind of a default filter for a page. And so let me first of all show you kind of an example of that. Let's go do a search. Now in my search results, maybe I only want to see things that are in the knowledge area. Maybe I only want to see those in a given knowledge base and apply that as a filter, right? So now this is basically knowledge articles that contain email in the IT knowledge base. Now what I can do is I can save this as a filter, maybe call it something like email KBs in IT KBase. Right, and by doing that, I now have a new option introduced with 4.4, which is I can take this save filter and I can say I want to set this as my default. Now what happens next is if I come back and I do a search for, say, spam, what you're going to find in this search is it didn't just do a search across all of our different types for the word spam, it now did a search inside the type of knowledge and apply the knowledge base of IT to this and is applying this filter of email. Now you notice it didn't include the contains email because basically on the search it's taking what is coming in as a new contain search and using that as kind of an override for what's in the filter. But it's using the rest of that filter as kind of the default to apply to that page. Now where this can also be used is say on your request page. So for example, on my request page, maybe I really only care about incidents, and maybe I only really care about those that have been updated in the last 24 hours, right? So I can save that as a filter and say newly updated incidents, right? So the same thing I can do here now that I've defined this as a filter. I can define this as my default filter for this page. So whenever I leave and come back to my check status page, by default it's going to be filtered by incidents and also those that have been updated in the last 24 hours. All right, now if I go back to user preferences and I look at that favorites section, what you'll see is that these individual pages now have assigned default filters to them. I can also edit and change these directly from this preferences page so that now when I go back to my request page, I remove that filter, so it should get my default list back as it was. So that covers kind of user preferences, the ability to edit them, also this default filter functionality that can be applied to a number of different pages, the search results, the check stats, but also some of the browse pages as well, as a way to personalize kind of the experience and which records are displayed for the user. Hope this is helpful. Thank you.